Hi, hope you are doing well. In this video, we are going to discuss about Citrix Netscaler ADC deployment models. As you have aware that there are multiple modes of deployment like one arm mode, two arm mode, multi arm mode, and there are a lot of design considerations part of it. And there is a big question when anyone is trying to deploy a Netscaler is which model I have to select. So what we are going to do in this video is we are going to cover all these things and we will help you even how to implement the solution. So in short, what you are going to achieve by the end of this video is you will know what is a one arm mode. Like this is what one arm mode looks like in Netscaler. You will know the complete details, you know how to design, you will know how the traffic flow will, and this is how the two arm mode works. So by the end of this video, you will know this, and this is called the multi arm mode. So let's jump straight in. So before we go to the one arm mode, two arm mode, right? So as we know that most of the people who are implementing Netscalers are not from networking background. That's why I put a small two slides just to help the people who are from systems background just to understand how the switching and routing works, because this is very important for the implementation of the Netscaler and choosing the right mode. So let's say that what is a switch? Switch is like a typical L2 device, meaning to say, let's say you have a VLAN, right? 192.168.10 slash anything slash 24. So if anything, all the devices connected to that switch in that subnet can talk to each other. Let's say that you have a different subnet 20 and this is 10. If 10 wants to talk to 20, subnet 10 like this wants to talk to 20, they cannot, because the switch don't know how to route the traffic. Whereas in the case of a router, let's say you have a router has two interfaces, example 10.1 and 20.1. Generally this will be your gateways. So if my 10 wants to 10 subnet, any IP wants to talk to other IPs, they can talk to each other, like you can see. While if they want to talk to other subnet also, they can talk, because the routing information is already there, right? In some cases, actually, there is something called firewall will plays a major role here, that you will just open the ports, but we are just discussing only routing here. Now, this is a simple routing, right? So, for you to implement a Netscaler, particularly the complex designs, you need to understand the basic routing. That's why I put this slide. Imagine that you have this is your DMZ router, or one router which has only 192.168 and 10, 20, 30 subnets. And let's say this is your production router, 172.16, 10, 20, 30, and you have associated servers connected to it. And let's say you have a development network where 10.10.x.x is there. So imagine you have this DMZ router, you have this production router, you have this development router. So all the workloads are connected to the respective. Let's say that we have a user here, and this user wants to talk to these guys. How they will talk? Simple, right? First, actually the router should have a routing protocol. So, and they use something called routing table. So how the routing table for this router looks is, all the 192.168 are already connected to this, so it no need to have the information because these are all connected routes, right? So for to talk to, let's say that if this router wants to talk to anything in this connected to this router or this router, how it looks is 172.16.00. Any traffic comes to this, we need to forward to what? 100.2 means this router will forward to this interface. That's what it knows. So it don't need to worry. This router no need to worry that's what's happening here. It just will forward the traffic to this interface. That will take care of it. Same thing goes for the development network also. Now let's say how this router looks, the routing table. It's the same way, right? So 192.168 means anything here, right? It need to pass to the traffic to simply 100.1. In the same way, anything is here, it need to pass the traffic to 100.2. This is a simple. So this basic understanding is very important when you are deploying a Netscaler. That don't need to worry now, because if you are not very well sure about these routing tables and all, we'll discuss. I'll show you how the routing table looks. When we're discussing each models. So now let's say if this 10.20 wants to talk to 20.1 subnet 20.40, it can straight away talk, right? Because this has the routing information. Let's say if you have a firewall, you need to open the ports. That's it. So now let's say if this guy wants to talk to this IP, the traffic will send here. So how this router will know that how to send the packet to 10.30? because it says 170.16 has sent to 100.2. So it will straight away, this router straight away send this packet to 100.2, and 100.2 will route the packet to here. Same thing goes to the DMZ network, development network also, right? If you have a, so this is the basic idea. So just keep this in mind. That's it. It's very simple. It's very easy, right? Now straightly jump into our actual topic. What is Netscaler one arm mode deployment? One arm mode deployment is very simple. It's just one bicep. Actually, you can see here there are three IPs called NSIP, SNIP, and VIP. You know, NSIP is for management, VIP is for the actual the user will connect to this, SNIP is for backend communication. If you want to know more details about this, I will leave a link explaining these details, you know, in the description below. So please have a look at that. Now, what is one arm mode? One arm mode means the Netscaler will have only one interface. That's it. Means you will connect only one interface and all the traffic will pass through that only. That is one arm mode. So simply, right? So let's say, this is how it looks typically. So you have only one interface. So you have only one VLAN, right? So you might say that, oh, you know what, I'll connect only one interface, but I'll run multiple VLANs inside that interface, then if you are doing that, it is not one arm mode. It typically looks like one arm mode from a physical perspective, but inside it is not one arm mode. So a typical one arm mode looks very simple. You will request a one VLAN only for your network, Netscaler purpose. Like let's say in this case 192.168.10.10 is your Netscaler IP, 10.11 is subnet IP, 10.12 is virtual IP. And let's say that you are publishing a service called portal.company.com, and this portal is running on these two web servers, right? So let's say it's in the same VLAN. That's why I put switch here. So because it's in the same VLAN, we don't need a router. So now let's say that if the users want to talk to consume the service, how the traffic flows. Very simple. User will request, with the portal.company.com, it will be resolved to the public IP, and the public IP actually generally will be natted and listened on the typically your perimeter firewall, right? So this firewall has this IP. So let's say that if your service, what we are going to discuss, is only internal, not external, you will not have public IP. That's the only difference, right? So let's say you have public IP, and this will be natted to a virtual IP, right, in your firewalls, typically the perimeter firewall. So that traffic is natted here, and it will be sent back to the virtual IP. And now the virtual IP receives the traffic, and Netscaler will do the actual algorithms, and it checks to which backend servers, and it decided that it has to send to 14. Let's say, then who will send the traffic back? The subnet IP will send the traffic back to the switch, and switch will send to the web server. So this is actually the typical flow looks. So user will talk only to the virtual IP. User will never talk to the subnet IP or the backend servers. The Netscaler actually will never send the traffic with this IP to the backend servers. So it will always send using the subnet IP. By the way, NSIP is only for management. So the rule of thumb, right? Virtual IP and subnet IP from same VLAN, and backend servers can be in same or different VLAN. This is the thing. Everyone thinks, one or more deployment, the backend servers should be in the same VLAN like 10 as I showed here. It's not really required. Only thing is you will put a default route and it works, Now let's say that there is a different kind of one arm mode, right? So this is also one arm mode. How come? It has two interfaces, right? You can see one is black, one is green. Then how come it is one arm mode? See, typically when we are saying one arm mode, we always think or consider only the user traffic, right? Or the services which we publish, that traffic. Let's say we published a service called portal.company.com, and this traffic will never go through NSIP. It will go through only VIP and subnet IP, right? As we discussed earlier. So this is also one arm mode. Let the Netscaler connect to Netscaler SNIP connects to a different interface. It's fine. But still, this is the one arm mode. When we will use this deployment, mostly for physical appliances, because physical appliance has different interface. By the way, if you want to know very detailed about physical appliance details, I will leave the YouTube link down in the description below. It will explain you, what are the interfaces in physical and how to connect with each interface, what the user of each interface. Yeah. So now let's jump into our discussion, right? So even though it has two interfaces, it looks, but it is still one arm mode, because your traffic is still going, in one way only. So the user wants to talk, it goes the same way as before. There is no change in your traffic. So still it is considered as one arm mode only. It's not considered as two arm mode. Now let's jump into the rule of thumb. Rule of thumb is NSIP can be in any VLAN. That's the thing. And virtual IP and subnet IP in same VLAN, and backend some servers can be in same or different VLAN. As you can see here, it can be in different VLAN. All you need to do just routing. That's it, right? As you can see here, the default route is going where 190.0.0.0 everything. That's a default route, right? Going to 10.1. Let's say 10.1 is the gateway. So the default route is here. So it don't mind whatever the backend VLAN, the servers wherever they are hosted. You will send your traffic to your default router, and that router will take care of the routing to the actual whatever the VLAN you have in the backend. So even though it looks like this, it is still one arm mode. Oh, this is clear, right? Now let's jump into the two arm mode. So two arm mode means very simple. So unlike previous one, the previous one what you have only one interface where the incoming and outgoing traffic is going from the same interface. That is one arm mode. Now in this case, in two arm mode, you have virtual IP sitting in one interface, but the subnet IP is sitting in different interface. This is important. What I mean by interface is they are different VLANs. That's a very simple. As you can see here, virtual IP is, let's say, 10.12 and subnet IP is 30.11. So they are not in the same VLAN. Why we do this? Actually, we'll discuss in the end of the video when we will use this mode. This is very common and very standard mode of deployment. In the same way, like we discussed before, NSIP can be in any VLAN. Always remember, in Netscaler, virtual or physical or SDX or anything, NSIP can be in any VLAN. So it can have a different interface. So number of interfaces which are there in the network, which are connected to the Netscaler, doesn't talk about one arm or two arm. How you will know that an appliance is one arm or two arm? It depends on how your traffic is flowing, particularly routing tables, right? That's how you know whether it is a one arm mode or two arm mode. It's not like a rule of thumb, you put one interface, it's one arm mode. No, we can have 6 interfaces and we can still make a one arm mode work, right? So typically this is how it works. Now let's say if a user talks to, if I have the same like portal.company.com hosted on these web servers, if the user wants to talk, that rule is simple. The traffic will come to the public IP and it's sent to the NATed virtual IP. Virtual IP receives the traffic, and now the Netscaler decided that it has to send the traffic to 10.21. Now how the Netscaler will know that it has to send the traffic to this? Very simple. The subnet IP, it decided one subnet IP, right? It decided this subnet IP will send the traffic. Now how it will know that only this subnet IP send the traffic? Maybe in the Netscaler, by the way, you know the rule. Every VLAN you should have a subnet IP of virtual IP. So you will have a subnet IP here also. So how the Netscaler will know that you have to use this subnet IP, not this one, right? It's very simple. It depends on the routing table. Have a look at the routing table here. So now this is a default route, right? Default route is going to 192.168.10.1. Means let's say this is the gateway for this, for instance. Now let's say 192.168.30.0 going to 30.1, because whenever you connect actually an IP, whenever you place a subnet IP in any VLAN, by default you will have this route created. It's actually created, you cannot delete it. So that traffic will go to this gateway. That's what it's saying. Now the third one is important, which you will create, right? So 172.16.0.0 means, let's say your backend servers are in 172.16 and you are telling them use 30.1. So the moment you say that this interface is actually the next hop for your Netscaler, Netscaler will automatically know that subnet IP is this, right? And how it knows is very simple. Whenever you are trying to do this deployment, whenever you are doing a two arm mode, in the Netscaler, in the interfaces, open the interface, select the subnet IP, this subnet IP, then actually Netscaler will know that this subnet IP is using this interface, right? So this is how it goes. Traffic will be sent to the gateway and finally the server. So the rule of thumb is very simple. Virtual IP and subnet IP is in different VLAN. Actually, you can have subnet IP you will have subnet IP in this VLAN also. So what I mean to say is the traffic flow, the virtual IP and subnet IP will be used from different VLANs. That's when it is two arm mode, right? Netscaler can be from VIP or subnet IP or any VLAN. Actually, when you are doing this kind of deployments, you keep the Netscaler IP actually in the subnet IP VLAN or any other VLAN, because most of the time the VIPs are in DMZ VLAN and no one keeps a management interface in the DMZ VLAN. So you can keep in a management interface, but always remember the Netscaler SNIP is not the out of band. This is one rule you need to learn. Never keep Netscaler IP NSIP in the out of band. If you want to know more details, just check the description below that I was talking about the physical interfaces and all, and about the Netscaler IPs. Now the backend servers can be in same or different VLAN. This is actually the proper 2-arm mode, right? Now let's move to the multi-arm mode. What is multi-arm mode? So let's say you have one interface. Now it looks typically like our 1-arm mode, right? The one we discussed before. So you have virtual IP, you have subnet IP, and you have 2 servers. So you have a portal, and it is going to actually, if the user wants to talk, the traffic will go like this, because the default route is 192.168.10.1, which is this VLAN, right? So this is fine. We are clear, right? Because we already discussed 1-arm mode. Now let's say that we have a development network. If the dev.company.com, the IP is 172.10.12, this is a virtual IP. If he want to talk, the traffic will go like this, right? It goes to router and then to Netscaler. Netscaler will decide use the subnet IP and send the router and the backend server. Now this looks 2-arm mode, but in fact actually you need to pay little attention here. It is not 2-arm mode. It is still 1-arm mode for us, right? Why? Our traffic flow is from virtual IP to subnet IP. They are in the same VLAN. Remember, see this thing, right? This is also 1-arm mode. So overall it is 1-arm mode. Now let's say that we have another interface. This is for production network, right? If production.pro.company.com, it's a different VLAN, right? This is 192.168, this is 172.16, this is 10.10. That user want to talk, okay, fair enough. It's a different router. The VIP and the subnet IP, the traffic will go like this. User will send the traffic to router, router to VIP. VIP will send using the subnet IP. Always subnet IP will be used when you are sending the traffic back. Means when you are opening firewall rules, always open the firewall rules. Source is subnet IP, backend is your servers, and whatever the application ports you are using. It's sent to router and backend server. Now this also still 1-arm mode. How it is, the multi-arm mode? The question is here. What if 192.168.10.12, the DMZ IP, the backend servers are 41 and 42? Meaning to say that when you are configuring this virtual server, this 10.12, your backend servers are these, right? Currently, let's say these backend servers are not these 2. Let's say that if traffic has to flow from here to here, right? Let's say these are your backend servers. Now how the user will communicate, right? Simple. User will come like this and it goes to the virtual IP, and Netscaler now knows that the backend servers are here. But how it will know that which interface, which subnet IP and which interface to use? You have 3 interfaces, right? So now the backend server is, let's say that this one 20.41, right? So if it need to use 41, Netscaler knows that the default route for this is 10 is where 10.1, which is a production. So who is staying in that VLAN? Only the subnet IP of production. So it has to use this. As I said in the previous one earlier, so if you have this kind of scenario, open the Netscaler, go to systems, network and interface, click on the interface, select this subnet IP for this interface, this subnet IP for this interface, this subnet IP for this interface. That's it. Just select it. That's it. No need to do anything. Just select and say OK. Then Netscaler will know whenever I need to send back to the communication with this subnet IP, it will use that interface. So now the routing is playing role, right? So let's say the traffic is coming from one VLAN and it is going through another VLAN. This looks familiar for us, right? How it looks? It looks like a 2-arm mode for us now. Now let's say that I have some services. Let's say for this dev is hosted in DMZ. It goes like this, right? The traffic. Sorry, I'm calling it a multi-arm mode because you have multiple arms and you use this. So let's say the second question, if no virtual IP in production network, still SNIP is required in production zone, right? What I mean to say, let's say you don't have this virtual IP here. Okay, you have an interface, you have backend servers in that. And if I have my virtual IP here, going back to our first question, do I need subnet IP? Yes, of course, right? Because the rule, we always say that keep a subnet IP in each VLAN where your VIP is. But in your multi-arm mode, what you do, every interface you keep a subnet IP and you tag that subnet IP to that interface. That's it. So when you do that, what happens is Netscaler knows which subnet IP you use to backend. So why we use this actually? Why we have to do this multi-arm mode? What is the advantage? We'll discuss this in the last, after a few minutes. We are almost done. Now, let's say rule of thumb, separate VLAN for virtual IP and subnet IP in each zone. NSIP can be from any zone. Always remember, NSIP can be from any zone. SNIP communicates with backend servers using routing table. Always remember this. SNIP blindly don't go. SNIP always uses the routing table. So based on the routing table only, which subnet IP to use, this or this or this will be decided, right? So based on that only, based on your routing table only, you have to open your firewall rules, right? So tag SNIPs to respective network interfaces. This is very important. As I said, you go to your Netscaler, configuration, system, network, interfaces, select each interface, and just, when you select the interface, in the down, you will see all the IPs, select that interface. That's it. You are good. Now, let's say that which one we have to choose, right? This is a big question. So now we learned all the design methods, we learn how to implement, right? Implement is just tagging and stuff. You will add the SNIPs, but the rule is, the main challenge for anyone, like me, I used to have this challenge, in early days of my career, to choose which model. Like, I work with a system integrator where, I have like hundreds of customers. Every customer environment is different, right? So you need to select the deployment mode based on the customer environment. Now, let's say how to choose one arm or two arm or multi-arm mode based on each customer requirement. I will explain, right? So let's say if a customer, let's say mostly in DMZ, right? They keep in DMZ, and this DMZ, Netscaler will talk to the, it has to talk to the outside, which is common. It will talk to the DMZ servers. It will talk to the internal servers also, right? So then you need to ask a question to the customer. Dear customer, do you want to let your internal traffic also, let's say the traffic going from your Netscaler to internal, to pass through DMZ firewall or internal firewall? This is the main question. This question answers your deployment mode, either it is one arm mode or two arm mode. If the customer says no, all the traffic has to go to the DMZ firewall, it has to go there, then class. Request only one thing, request one VLAN from customer, /24 or /25, it's up to you. Just put only one interface. Mostly this applies to VPX and sometimes in the physical appliances also. But in physical appliances, as I had showed you before, actually what you do in NSIP, you keep in different VLAN most of the time, right? And in one arm mode deployments, so this is how it looks. So if a customer says that his traffic, all the traffic need to be hairpinned back to his DMZ firewall only, then use the one arm mode. Now let's say two arm mode. Now when we need to use two arm mode? Now in the same requirement, let's say that I have a customer. If customer says, what, my DMZ traffic will come to the DMZ VIP, but whenever I have backend servers, let's say that this is your DMZ, right? 192.168. Let's say this is your production example, right? This is your production. Let's say this production zone. If customer says, what, my DMZ, any traffic is coming, my DMZ firewall is already overloaded. I don't want to send the traffic to DMZ firewall. You do one thing, you send the traffic to the production firewall or internal directly. How we do it? Very simple. Take one interface from DMZ, keep it here, and take another interface from internal and connect it to the Netscaler. So this applies to even VPX or physical one also. It's the same thing. You connect two interfaces from two different VLANs or two different zones. This is from DMZ zone. This is from your internal production zone. Then what happens? You request customer two VLANs. This is very important, right? You don't need actually full VLAN for this. if they have already an existing VLAN, you can take one IP from this, or sometimes 2 to 3 IPs, because most of the time in this design, what we do, we keep the Netscaler IP also in the same subnet. So now, what is the main important thing in this is actually the routing table. Always remember, if the customer backend servers, whatever servers, let's say the backend, their production servers and everything are 172.16 or 10.10, create a static route and put the gateway of this production, whatever is the gateway for this SNIP. This is very important. The moment you do that, automatically it will become 2-arm mode, because we discussed it earlier, right? And the default route is nothing but 0.0.0.0 always should go to your DMZ. Remember this rule, very important. Never keep the default route to any internal gateways, because it's a big security breach. And now, why this design is very popular and very important. Many people actually avoid doing 2-arm mode because they don't know whether I need to use 2-arm. They don't know how to implement. Guys, it's very simple, very easy. As I said, take 2 interfaces, right? Create routing table, and very important thing is just tag this subnet IP to the interface. This is very important. Even though I am not showing here in this picture, in this slide, you need to take a subnet IP in this VLAN also. Remember, always whenever you have a virtual IP, create a subnet IP in that VLAN also. Rule of thumb, even though we are not using it here, but still rule of thumb, always create it, right? So this is what, where you will use 2-arm mode. Generally, your production firewall is big, DMZ firewall is small. So you don't put too much load on your DMZ firewall. This is one. Rule number 2, if a customer says that, let's say it is not a public application, it's an internal application. It's an internal application, you don't need to, send huge traffic, to the, the firewall or something, this is also very important. So now let's go to the multi-arm mode. Guys, actually, if you ask me, 2-arm mode, multi-arm mode is nothing but actually you are adding more interface. It looks like one arm, but we discussed just a couple of minutes ago. When we choose this multi-arm mode is, let's say, if customer have multiple zones. If customer says, you know what, I have DMZ, I have development, I have production, I have testing, then do one thing, take one VLAN from each zone, right? And take one cable from each zone, you connect them to the Netscaler. By the way, when I'm saying one cable, don't think that we always use one cable. Sometimes we use 2 cables from the same VLAN, and we do something called LACP, right? Link Aggregation Control Protocol. If you want to know more details, actually, please refer to the same link of the Netscaler interfaces, the physical ones, the video, you will have the details there. In our example, we have 3 zones, right? One is the DMZ zone, one is development zone, one is a production zone. Take 3 VLANs from customer, either 24 or /23. Most of the time, NSIP will go to the production. Always keep NSIP, in the production. Don't keep them in the DMZ. It's not good, because NSIP will be used for a domain controller and radius and LDAP communication. But sometimes I had some customers who they have domain controllers and the radius they keep in DMZ. So in that case, keep NSIP in DMZ. It makes sense, right? So it depends on customer to customer. So always, this is when you choose the multi-arm mode. It's not about choosing, it's all about how many interfaces you are connecting and what is the routing table you are creating. So this you need to create manually. Always remember, rule of thumb, the default gateway is always to the DMZ. Always, because this is for security reasons. And the second one, if you have a different zone, take this complete SuperNet IP address of this. Let's say in my case 172.16.0.0. I will put that to 176.10.1, right? The 10.11 is the gateway, subnet IP, and that gateway is 10.1. So I use that. Right now, coming back to the production, same 10.00/8 means I am doing anything dot here. Okay, I'm sending it to the 10.10.10.1, which is the subnet IP is in that VLAN. I'll send to this gateway. This is how and why and when you will choose different models and one over another. So it's not very complex. Actually, if you go to Citrix website, it looks very complex. Guys, no, it's not very complex. It's very easy. If you need any help, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Leave your comments down. Please watch the video till the end. I will leave the description of my blog. where you can follow my blog, where you have detailed installation step-by-step guides there, which will help you. Stay tuned and please complete the full series of this Netscaler basics. Then you will know and you will master the Netscaler. Don't worry, we are there to help you. If you need anything, please leave your comments. Thank you.